Hello, I'm Michael Lorwig, and with me today on the Wizard's Chest is my good friend Loras, and we're going to be talking about life in this society as an empath and these beautiful sacred geometries of yours. Welcome, Loras.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for having this interview with me.
Now, you had an interesting start in your life growing up in Cedar Rapids.
Well, Dubuque, Iowa.
And Dubuque, Iowa, and then later Cedar Rapids. Tell us a little bit about your early time frame coming into your awakening, and we'll just go from there.
My early childhood was one of being living in a large family. I was the seventh of 9 children. It was very much a time in the early 60s, I guess, mid 60s, where children were seen and not heard, right? We didn't get to communicate much with each other. There wasn't a lot of communication in our family. So I was left with myself a lot. I didn't know what was going on. I was an empath and I was feeling all this stuff, and none of it was that much fun for me. It was overwhelming most of the time. I just really felt overwhelmed all the time.
Now, what were you feeling? Were you feeling it from the family itself, or you've actually mentioned you feel even a lot from mass consciousness?
Well, yes, I do. Back then, as I remember, as I became a teenager, I started to call myself the keeper of pain, because I felt like I was absorbing my family's pain all the time. That was my job. I don't know why I thought that was my job, but I thought that was my job, to absorb everybody's pain, and I just thought that was normal. I guess I didn't have any frame of reference for even what that was. In Iowa, I don't think they even use the word empath. So went through most of my life as an adult even, not really understanding what was going on. Because again, in Iowa, there's nobody really to talk to, and I was very introverted, very quiet, and lived most of my life alone because of the way that I felt when I was outside. If I was outside of my house, I felt afraid, overwhelmed, and it was just hard for me to deal with it. I always wanted to go home and be safe inside my sanctuary. And that's what I've created here with the sacred geometry and the beautiful crystal that you've left here with us, is a sanctuary where I feel safe. It's a high frequency place. We have a lot of love here between my wife and myself, and even the people that come here. I need an environment that's filled with love in order for me to feel really good. So that's what I've created here. My awakening happened in Iowa. It was a rather interesting time in my life. About 10 years ago, 2008, there was a flood in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and as an electrician, I was going back down into this flooded area after the flood receded, and I was clearing houses, and I could see all the people that were tearing everything out of their houses, their life possessions, and were just destroyed. And after doing this for 2 days and seeing these people and interacting with them, it just crushed me emotionally. And something happened, because I could feel everything. I could feel the quiet desperation that everybody was having, and it just crushed me. I ended up crying for 2 days, almost quit my job because I couldn't function. Something happened, something shifted. I ended up quitting my job a few months later. I ended up breaking up with the woman that I was living with and moving out and living by myself again. And it wasn't for another 1.5 years before I had a meeting with a woman who was peculiar, to say the least. And she told me I was here for the ascension, and told me I was an ET and was going to do magical things to help with the ascension, which to me at that time was like, you're crazy.
How old were you at that time?
I was 52 when that happened. I was 50 when the flood happened, 52 when I met Gia Marie, who was the woman who told me that I was here to assist humanity in raising consciousness and with the ascension, as she called it.
Did you ever get any help with your parents through, shall we say, the first 30 years of your life in dealing with the sensitivities that you had and all of the energies you felt? Did anybody even recognize what you were going through?
No, absolutely not. Actually, when I turned about, in my mid-20s, I started using therapy, talk therapy and group therapy, trying to understand what was going on with me. and why, I was the only member of my family, 9 children. I was the only one that wasn't married. I was the only one that didn't have successful relationships, if you will, or have children. It just didn't work for me. I couldn't go there. It was just too difficult for me to be that close to anyone. So no, absolutely not. I remember the first time I got beat up. I was 11 years old, and when I went home with my younger brother and sister, went home and told my mom about it, she completely ignored me, which was very traumatic for me because I was always taught from my family, and this is, I don't want to blame anybody for anything that happened to me because I know that I created this reality that I experienced. It's of my own making. I did this. It took me a long time to realize it, but I created this reality. But she basically, by ignoring me, really told me that you're on your own here. You need to figure this out, whatever it is. And that was really difficult, but it's hard to say exactly why it played out that way, but I really did need to have the experience that I did have to get me to where I'm at today. It's extremely important that everything that did happen, so that I could understand humanity and understand empaths.
Well,
and
one
so
of the
much of
things
what's going on.
that I write about with these amazing souls that are coming in to help with the ascension time frame is the level of sensitivity that they have. And all of humanity is moving from separation consciousness to unity consciousness. As part of that is an increased sensitivity and empathic connections with everybody around you. Depending upon where you are on your path and where you are within your sensitivities, that's going to be different for different generations. I know my generation feels things much less than these new kids coming in, and that's a lot of the reason I wanted to talk about this subject, because the parents very well may not be anywhere near as sensitive to the energies around them as these kids are.
Yeah, a lot of these kids are all on their own. And when you talk about, I'm glad you brought up the idea of sensitivity, because they're one and the same. An empath is sensitive, extremely sensitive people. It's that sensitivity that allows us to feel everything that's out there. And I never really heard that before until recently. They've been talking about these sensitive children and sensitive people. And that's really what it is. We are super sensitive. We pick up everything that's going on. And it's difficult for us to discern what's ours, what's everybody else's, or whose it is. And I've even met young children that are very keen on picking up who's feeling what. I never had that. For me, it was just a mishmash of everything. And it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming for sensitive people to be in this reality, because it's, in a lot of ways, if we look what's going on around, the brutality of what's going on around the world, and even the bullying that goes on in high school and stuff, it's like a horror show for sensitive people. It's just overwhelming because they are so sensitive, and they feel so deeply in their soul. They feel everything so deeply. At least that's been my experience.
Let me give you another part of that. These kids go to high school. What are the rooms made of? You've been in construction for a great deal of your life and been a handyman on many levels. These rooms are cinder block construction. You might as well put amplifying mirrors in a room and putting these sensitives in a room, feeling John's energy over here, Susan's over here, the teacher's stressed out, picking up theirs, and all of this energy is like in a box reverberating down on them. You call it their own personal hell. Absolutely. And one of the ways that especially young kids are able to dissipate that energy is by moving.
Yes.
And then we label them ADD, ADHD, pick a label, whatever you want.
Drugs.
But now, if you had a itch, if you wanted to call it that, at that level, and you're told you can't move, what would you expect out of these kids? It's natural that they need to move. Now, there's other aspects around the focus part. That's another matter altogether. But still, as far as picking up and feeling all of the energies around you, if they're not positive, if they're more towards the negative or certainly a non-harmonic energy, might be a better way of putting it. What's the effect going to be? You just naturally know the person's going to be terribly uncomfortable.
Correct.
And anything else you can imagine.
And, well, you start speaking about schools, we're trying to put a variety of beings that is so broad into a little box and make everybody fit in this little box. And that just isn't going to work anymore. We've been doing the powers that be that create the schools or the work environment, etc., are trying to put everybody in the same little box. And it simply isn't going to work anymore. Because there's so many kids that just aren't going to fit in that box anymore. And we're going to label them as dysfunctional or lazy or whatever we want to do. And it's just wrong. It's just wrong. We are all so very different. We need to be able to express that individuality. You do see with children more acceptance of each other, more acceptance of their differences. If we look at color or nationality or gender identification, most children are very open to the differences that are going on in the classrooms. They don't see all the difference. They just invite it in and embrace it. They're not rejecting it like in our generation. There was so much rejection of anything that didn't fit in the little box that they had constructed for us. So there is a lot of improvement from when I was a child. Believe me, this has been heartening. Heals my heart to see what some children are doing with each other, how much they love each other and accept each other. That's really been a good thing for me to see, and as we're progressing into this awakening, if you will.
Cool. Now, within your awakening, as you said, most of your big shift occurred when you were in your 50s. And as many of us have gone through, whatever could change in our life did change. You moved, relationships ended, you came to Denver, you were in India for a period of time, all kinds of different things. What different levels of study for you since you began your awakening you think have helped you the best? Because I know you've studied a lot of different things.
Well, that's true and it isn't true. I don't know that I've studied all that much. For me,
In your own way.
in my own way, I have picked up a lot of information. We don't know where this is going, right, or how this whole thing's going to play out.
Meaning the shift and everything
The shift,
else
yes. We don't know when it's going to happen. We don't know what it's going to look like, if it's going to take 1 year or 1,000 years. We don't know if there's going to be a big bang flash thing going across the planet or people are just going to start ascending. We have no idea how it's really going to play out. We have a lot of ideas. We've heard a lot of concepts. I've watched a ton of stuff on Gaia TV, which I really appreciate, especially David Wilcox's work. I have read some material. The thing for me, and I think this has been intentional through my life, is that I don't learn a lot by reading or studying. Most of what I pick up is by observing and watching what's going on around me. I like to think that I'm a bit of a master carpenter, a master of a lot of different trades. And most of that stuff I picked up by watching. And I really believe as we move deeper into this, and even now, there is a wisdom that is coming forth that we are going to channel into the world. And I think that's a lot of what we call us light workers or whatever they want to call us. Us individuals who are waking up to think that we're from another place and we've come here for this ascension and to assist is to bring this knowledge into the world. And this knowledge is really, for me, for my purpose, I believe it's really a knowledge of how do we create a new world with our intentions and with our thoughts. for me, it isn't about technology. It's about consciousness. It's about feeling and creating through those feelings, creating through intention, using things like sacred geometry, like crystals, to expand the energies that we're using, or the ideas and concepts that we're using to create a new reality. We think about more love, and there is more love. We think about peace, and then there is more peace. We think about more kindness, and there is more kindness. That's where my work is coming into play. That's what I believe my job is here, or what I'm bringing to the planet, is this wisdom about how to create without machinery, without money, without moving mountains.
Well, you're creating them in the quantum field.
Correct.
But at the same time, your work with your partner Azura has been in working with belief structures as well.
Correct.
And it's such a huge aspect of our creation and manifestation to recognize that, yes, I can have all the positive affirmations in the world, but if at my subconscious level I've got a particular belief structure that says I'm in lack, just to pick one. We
It's a
know
good one.
abundance is a big one for a lot of people. Self-love, that's one of y'all's favorite that y'all always have to address. You have to address these subconscious beliefs as well as, quite simply, anything that comes up for an individual in order to create your true manifestation.
Correct.
And a lot of y'all's work plays in both areas. It's one thing to be the positive. I know what I want,
Yeah, we do know.
but what's the true pattern that's being played out at not only a conscious level, subconscious level, unconscious level, and how are you acting? You can say, I'm going to do all the positive phrases that you want, but truly, how are you acting? What's your whole energetic signature, in essence, along those lines?
Well, and I like to see it from two aspects. There's two things that we get to play with in this reality. One is fear, and one is love. And from my perspective, fear is the illusion of this place. Love is what is real. And we have been programmed from the time we were very young, well, from the time we're born until the time we're about 7 years old.
And in the womb.
And in the womb, and even past lives play into this life time. The subconscious mind is a processing unit that processes everything that's happened to us. And then we have a reaction or reaction to it and manifest into the world based on all this programming that's in our mind. Well, most of what we've been programmed with is a lie, from my perspective, that lack even exists, because I don't think lack even exists. It's an illusion. It's a fear-based illusion that we've been programmed into, that there isn't enough. And this is running in most people, except for people who are wealthy, right? They, for some reason, don't have this programming, and they are able to manifest this wealth. So these are the things that are in our subconscious mind that, with the conscious alchemy work that my wife developed, we are able to delete that programming and get it out of the way, get the lie out of the way, so that we can start pulling the truth more forward into the daylight. Because I do believe that our true essence, which I believe is love, is in here all the time. But through our experiences here on earth, it's all been covered up with fear, with guilt, with shame, with trauma, with all the things that we experience when we're really young. If we don't have the perfect childhood where nobody screams at us or nobody yells at us, and we're always fed exactly when we're hungry, and we always get exactly what we need, which isn't the way it's been in this reality. It's been a lot of trauma. We've been, forced into wars, forced to hurt each other in so many different ways, been manipulated to think that we're not one in so many different ways that we end up hurting each other and having this experience, which I understand it's a growth way for us to grow spiritually. And at the same time, we still have to be able to wake up out of this thing and move past this so that we can bring joy and love and create whatever we can imagine in from a place of love, so that we can all enjoy it and it's all inclusive for everyone.
And one of the things along those lines that you intimated on was it's not about becoming something different. It's about bringing forth our true self.
Yes.
It's not about, well, I'm learning to do something else and I have to learn something outside of myself. No, it's about eliminating all of the illusion.
Correct.
And bringing the true self out forward. And it's a very much a different way of looking at it instead of searching outside of yourself, recognizing everything's within.
Yeah, everything is within, isn't it? It's a hard concept to grab a hold of at first when you start waking up, because it's like, really? It doesn't make sense from the reality that we were taught that exists.
It's the conditioning that says
more of that conditioning.
outside of yourself, outside of yourself, outside of yourself.
One of the great teachers, Jesus on down through everybody else, they keep on telling us the kingdom of heaven is within. But everything is outside of us here, or at least that's our perception of it. So definitely, and like you said, we have to remove this illusion and step outside of the illusion or step into it. I'm not sure if this is all working right here. I mean, it's like the idea of what is waking up. The idea that we're dreaming, that most of the planet they're all asleep and they're dreaming.
They're in a walking dream
They're
state.
in a walking dream state. And how is that any different than when we go to bed at night and we dream? Is that real, or is that just a deeper dream state? It's very interesting concept to try to play with. What part of this is real? Is the dream real, or is the waking up part real, or is the next level that we go to, is that what's real?
Yes.
I think
all of those.
Yeah. That can be a very complicated, deep conversation, if going into...
Whereas recognizing within quantum dynamics, what you focus on expands. How does that work in your instance as a sensitive?
Not very well. My experience as a child and even a young adult, I became so afraid of everything that I started creating more things to be afraid of and more interactions with humans that were not going in my favor because I was so afraid all the time. So that was something that I had to overcome. And I did realize that was what was going on, probably in my 30s and 40s. And I was able to, through a lot of therapy, and even in therapy, there was no talk about being an empath or a sensitive. It was just, I was another normal person that was messed up. But I was creating so much mayhem in my life that the therapy helped me to see what I was doing. And I was able to undo or create less mayhem in my life by not reacting to everything so much and trying to just calm everything down, calming my mind down. Meditation would have been a great thing for me to learn when I was a sensitive as a young person. And I did have a little bit of that, which helped me in my 20s.
That's something I've mentioned in each of my books.
Yeah.
The importance of meditation and quieting and all of that. The problem is in our society, the parents aren't taught meditation.
Correct.
So it's not institutionalized in the society the way we would like to hope. And yet one of my favorite quotes from the Dalai Lama is, if every 8-year-old across the planet learned how to meditate, we would end all violence on the planet within 2 generations.
Absolutely. There's so much evidence.
It's such an important part as a sensitive for them to learn how to get still, how to get quiet.
I have a really great idea for the government if they want to choose this, if they really want to have peace, is to take everyone in the military, instead of hiring them to shoot guns, bang, 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 we hire them all to meditate. We could reduce crime, killing, the whole thing all around the world.
And how would the military-industrial complex make
Well,
that money?
that's the problem, isn't it? That is the problem.
So I wanted to talk about your sacred geometries, and there's a lot there that's very helpful for all of humanity. And there has a lot to do with the holographic nature of the physical reality. We see this as solid. We see this table as solid. This crystal is solid. Each of us is solid, and yet we know from an atomic level that the entire mass of my 747 that I flew could fit on a hit of a pin.
Correct.
And yet it's an illusion. But it's a holographic. It's a hell of a holographic.
It's really persistent.
And so talk a little bit about the holographic nature and how that plays with sacred geometry, and especially about creating coherent holograms within the sacred geometry and within your body and everything.
Whoa, that's a big one.
In 5 minutes, go ahead.
In 5 minutes. Well, I'm going to back up here just a little bit and say that we say that this is solid, right? And my hand hits this, right? Well, this is no different than if you're playing a computer game and you run into a character or a wall in that computer game, it stops and bounces off, right? It's because of the programming. That's why my finger doesn't go through. It's because of the programming. Okay? That's what creates this reality. It is not real. It is not real in the way we think of that this is solid. It is a program.
Isn't that the same way that different high-frequency individuals like a Jesus could walk on water?
Correct.
He had a belief structure that he could walk on water.
Absolutely.
They do the fire walking. You literally have the belief that I can walk on the coals and there will be nothing that will occur. That belief creates the reality. As soon as you dropped into the reality of, oh my goodness, I'm going to get burnt,
You burn.
it's guaranteed.
You burn instantly. So the sacred geometry and how it creates a holographic, well, everything, first of all, everything is made of sacred geometry. At its subatomic level, everything is formed into a sacred geometric form, whether it be a cube, a dodecahedron, or an octahedron. The matrix of the entire universe is created with sacred geometry. And the only thing that's real, we'll get back to that real thing again, but the points of sacred geometry are really where the energy is. That's where there's a little speck of energy, and everything else is created in this field. When we use sacred geometry and create with sacred geometry, that's where things become coherent and become aligned with each other so that they can form a more loving, more creative pattern, if you will. Does that make sense? Yes, it does.
Well, coherence is coherence in our individual fields is basically peace and harmony.
Correct.
When we're in a coherent state, we're not in any level of dis-ease. That's where, illness, dis-ease, all of these things occur in an incoherent field. And the more that we can create a coherent field within us, a coherent field around us, we're creating peace and harmony. And these structures at a subatomic level create fields, but you create them in a physical nature, which creates a particular field. Now, when you see or sense, I sense fields more than I actually see them. When you see or sense a field like this particular geometry, do you see it more expansive or is it toroidal? How do you see it?
Well,
Or does each one create a different field?
each geometry creates a different field. Now, all the geometries are based out of the first
Initially, the Platonic side.
Initially, before that, the flower of life, which is the wisdom of the universe, or all the knowledge of the universe, so they say. I'm not sure how we get
And isn't the flower of life pattern that we're used to seeing, and here's one, I'll put one up for them. That's only a two-dimensional plane version. The true flower of life pattern is a multi-dimensional version of that little two-dimensional plane.
Correct. But that's how it's been shown on this. Well, it's been shown as a three-dimensional too on this earth. If you look under the paw of the Sphinx, no, it's not the Sphinx. It's another creature that. Anyway,
The Sphinx has one of the Hall of Records, the Hall of Amity, in a different dimensional space underneath the Sphinx. Are you thinking about something different?
I'm thinking of something different. There's a half lion, half dog, I think, that has a ball sphere.
That's in China.
Okay, that's in China. That is three-dimensional.
Okay.
Also, you can take flower of life and pattern it with it's cube octahedron, which makes a very interesting energy also. That's multidimensional. For me, the geometries, it's rather interesting to me because I don't necessarily feel them the way that you would say feel them, and I don't see them the way that most people would see them. For me, it's more about the essence of the energy that flows through them, that brings about, when I enter into a sacred geometry, it starts to bring everything back together into alignment with love, or coherence, if you will, and order, and peace. There's a way that the geometry, I feel like I'm babbling now.
No, you're doing fine.
There's
For
a way.
babbling. That's okay. Babbling is fine.
Yeah.
I'm talking about
There
something.
we go. We're talking about something that
let me throw
reaches out
the
into
questions
the
and
world.
break it into two areas.
Okay.
What is it that you feel through your five senses, and then what is it that you pick up more from your empathic and intuitive sense? If you wanted to break it down into the two sides, or can you even break it down into two sides?
I can't even, it's very different for me because, and I never understood this, I was building these pieces and I would get in them and this is the one that's going to, like change the world for me. And it wouldn't. And I built 20 different structures and I would get inside of them and think, no, not there. And what I've been told over and over again is you can't perceive them that way because you already are that. And that for me is a little confusing because I feel like a human being in my body here. But I am this sacred geometry, I am this energy. And for me, it's more about their presence, I would say, than it is about the energy that flows through them. There's this presence that I am aware of with my geometries, that they're like my brothers and sisters. They're alive, they are sentient beings to me, and I talk to them and communicate with them and ask them for things to help me with things. To me, they're like my brothers and sisters, and they should be, when I walk out into the world, I'm going to go ballistic here, but they should be following me, and I know they are, but I have this sense that they should be in physical form following me down the street wherever I go, because that's what I am, and that's what drives me. That's what I create with on some level before it comes manifest into the world. It's all geometry, it's all frequency and vibration and love all coming together to create something that's not physical like this is, but yet it is at the same time.
It's hard to describe something that in essence is man-made.
Correct.
And yet everything is consciousness because everything is energy.
Right.
And we're so conditioned. This table was made by somebody. This glass, this beveled glass was created by somebody. And there's a natural subconscious belief structure that we have within that says, okay, I'm not God. That starts it.
That's the first lie.
Yeah, I'm not God. I made this, therefore this cannot have any level of consciousness residing. And yet, a grain of sand in the corner over there behind you is conscious, just not at the same level of a human conscious. There's an infinite scale of different consciousness, and these geometries, as you described, in essence, are your friends. It is a consciousness. It's just not a human consciousness.
It's not a human consciousness, and I would be very careful to say that level of consciousness, that a human is at a certain level of consciousness, because I'm not certain that this cup isn't more conscious than I am, because I do not know that.
When I say a level, I'm really thinking more like a
It's just
piano
a different
keyboard,
vibration.
a different tuning into a different radio
Yes.
frequency. Having if this was a grand piano keyboard, the human consciousness may reside in this band of frequencies, but my crystal friends, when I'm connecting with a crystal, I'm connecting at a different frequency band on the scale, whatever that may be,
and
not one being higher or whatever. The plant kingdom, the crystal kingdom, the divas, the fairy kingdom.
I just wanted to make the point that there isn't.
It's not higher or
just
lower.
because we're having this conversation and we're the ones that are creating this video, doesn't mean we're the highest consciousness in this
we're
world.
not. We're in fact, we're no.
I just wanted to make that point. We like to think we're the rulers of the world, but I don't know that I really.
I'm not even the ruler of my own house. Just ask my wife. We know that. We can bring Azura in here and
Very true. So it's all about perception, right? Everything is about perception. How do we perceive this world? And I'm again, my purpose and function is to change that perception of this reality, bring forward and show humanity, show people what's possible. And personally, I have to break down all my barriers. I have to clear my subconscious mind of all the things that make me think that this is solid, or that there is an issue with some type of fear, whether it be lack or judgment or war. I have to clear all of that stuff from my consciousness before I'm really going to be able to become what I am, or not even become what I am, but express what I am into the world. So I've been on this journey for the last 9 years, and it's been challenging at times to keep moving forward while we're stuck in so much of this subconscious stuff that's still going on in our minds, and we're having to deal with the entirety of 7.5 billion souls on this planet that are all trying to contradict what I'm trying to create in my mind, and my mind's part of their mind too. So there's a dance going on that's interesting with my consciousness interacting with 7.5 billion other consciousness, and I'm trying to create a different reality. It's been an interesting journey, that's for sure. And I am moving forward. I believe at some point enough of us will move forward enough and clear enough that we will be able to start creating so that the other 7.5 billion people can start seeing what's happening and flow along with it. Yeah, the geometry is part of that.
They help. They help. And
they create this field that we live in here. And
I'm drawn with my crystals. And we have like this crystal, my big geode behind, and many different crystals that I have, amplifies that resonance.
Yeah.
Where, in essence, one light worker or one person that's vibrating at a higher frequency, amplified with these
creatures,
levels of consciousness around us, it's like 1 versus 1,000, and the 1 is winning because A, it's a higher vibration, and there's a level of light amplification that goes with it. And
it's the truth. From my perspective, the higher vibration is closer to the truth of what we are and what we're doing here.
That's a really good point within that. It's not like it's furthering a lie.
Right.
It's awakening the truth at a much greater level, and the truth will always shine through within that.
And I think it's an excellent point that you make, that this environment that we have created here in our house, and many people comment on it when they come here, they can feel, and even your home is the same way with all your crystals and your intention. We create an environment, a vibrational field that reaches out, and it's probably infinite, the length or the how far we have an effect. I'm sure the further you get away from this house, the less effect it has, but that field is continuing to flow. When it's broadcast, right, it just becomes weaker as it gets out. So the more of these sanctuaries, if you will, or temples that we have, and this is something that the church has even done with all their churches all over the places at certain points, creating a field of energy that pulls everybody into the problem with that is they're not really teaching us the truth there all the time. Most of the time they are teaching the truth.
Each of the major religions initially was founded on love.
Yes.
There certainly has been no lack of man-made
Manipulation.
hockey poo that has overlaid into them over the different centuries. But every major religion had its initial foundings in love, and I can appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
And I can appreciate as a smorgasbord, if a particular concept is based in love, I'm all for it. But if something's of a separation consciousness, and every religion has those aspects, I just don't go there. But my wife Alin was mentioning one thing that different individuals had been interviewed or whatever about a particular concept, and within it, they all, to a person, just simply say, my religion is love. They didn't say my religion is Catholicism, Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, or what. No, my religion is love. What I want to do also is take a break now and go around and let's film some of the geometries for everybody.
That'd be excellent.
We'll go from there.
This is my structure that I call the Platonic Pulse, and I basically use this as an energy device in a home or office to expand the energy of sacred geometry. We have the cube on the bottom, the icosahedron, tetrahedron, octahedron, and on top we have the dodecahedron. Now these can be made in any size up to 8 feet in diameter, which you can get inside of those and use them. And this structure here is about 8 feet tall. This is the Christ grid portal. It is a variation of the dodecahedron with icosahedral stellations. It is a healing portal. Carries the Christ energy. It comes in sizes, I can get it down to about 4 feet or up 9-10 feet in diameter, and can be shipped anywhere in the world. Several years ago I was guided to build this structure, and they actually told me to build the new human, and when I looked into my mind's eye, this is what I saw. This amazing structure, and I mean this is an amazing structure because of the energy it exudes out into the environment that it's in, and it is a higher vibratory field pushing us forward into our evolutionary process. It actually affects every cell and all the way down to your DNA of your body, transforming it, moving it into a higher vibratory field, into a crystalline energy. This is my icosahedron. It is called the Quantum Accelerator. I love this machine. It is a rejuvenation portal, and it has been associated with the Ark of the Covenant. This is my star vector. It is a combination of the star tetrahedron and the cube octahedron, and it is a traveling device. It is our Merkaba on steroids, and I think this is an amazing transformational structure for traveling in the ethers. As we all love our children, I love each and every one of my sacred geometries very, very much, and I'm very grateful that you have taken the time to view them. Thank you so much.